or at least ideas whose flaws are pretty serious, or pretty obvious to other people. Reconstructing the ancient wonders of the seventh world out of baked goods, serenading someone you don't know with your weak old punk band, writing a country rock opera about a Canadian Mountie. These sort of ideas that are, pretty significantly dented, but worth pursuing nonetheless. And the story I'm going to read tonight is called One Last Round for Charlie Dell. And the title character, Charlie Dell, is recently deceased, and his friends have gathered at a local restaurant, and they're having an informal memorial, talking about the sort of stories they thought about during the wake but didn't actually say in front of everyone else who was gathered. And most of the speakers so far knew Charlie from his days in the World Hockey Association, played back in the 60s and 70s. And after that, Charlie became a town sheriff. And the last two characters who are speaking unexpectedly got to know Charlie through that profession. I say there are two characters speaking, but it's actually one who does the talking, and his twin brother is selectively mute. So again, the story is called One Last Round for Charlie Dell. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for letting us talk tonight. When we saw Curtis at the funeral today, he said that a bunch of people would be getting together here tonight and asked if my brother and I could say a few words. I know that's going to surprise a lot of you, but we never got to thank Charlie Dell. It's important for us to do that. True enough, Charlie Dell is the man who arrested us, but we've owed him our gratitude for a long time. Phil and me have gone through a lot. You don't understand what it's like hearing the same questions over and over again. About not wearing masks for a bank job, trying to get away in a donut truck, kidnapping Evelyn Dunn and Artie Brown. There's nothing worse than people asking you questions they think they already know the answers to. None of it's quite what you think. We had a really good plan that day. But our situation, our lives, especially the 8 years we did down to Warren, all of it would have been much worse if it wasn't for Charlie Dell. When you grow up like we did, Twomleys in Penobscot County, you grew up hearing about the sandy beach along the southern end of the lake and how it might bear the Milford name, but actually, legally, it belongs to you. Our dad used to take us hiking in those woods, owling too. I remember those nights with the moonlight trickling through the branches. He'd say, we're not trespassing. This land's really ours. The Milfords, liars, cheats. All of this was your great-granddad's, and one day we're going to get it back. The Milfords can't hide the truth in a safe deposit box forever. Our dad went to jail trying to break into that safe deposit box. So did our granddad. But me and Phil had the advantage of being twins, two heads working together, even if one of those heads, like Phil here, is selectively mute. The day we held up the savings and loan, the first thing Evelyn Dunn said when we walked up to her window was, "What took you boys so long?" We tapped on her window. She smiled. She knew why we were there. Everybody knew why we were there. There was pride involved. We wanted people to know it was us. That's why we didn't wear masks. We didn't feel good pulling guns on neighbors, but we had to set the record straight. And we didn't have to say a word about what we wanted. They led us straight back to the vault, took out all the papers, and we were out of there in no time. Hopped in our car, took off. Donut truck. That didn't come till later. Escaping wasn't part of the plan. Figured we'd turn ourselves in if we didn't get caught. We just needed some time to read that deed, which was old, brittle, and broken up along the folds. It's kind of confusing, too. We tried looking for names, but Evelyn kept interrupting. She was in the back seat. We had to take her along just in case. And you don't understand how hard it is to tie someone up and gag them. We didn't hurt Evelyn. She came right up to Phil at the funeral this afternoon. But that day, she just wouldn't stay quiet. It made it really hard to focus on reading. I just wanted to let the moment sink in, take a couple of minutes to think about the burden about to be lifted. But she kept shaking off that gag, and Phil would have to stop reading, climb over into the back seat, tie the gag back on. Then a couple of minutes later, she was back at it again, all full of gossip, telling us about this nephew of hers who was diabetic but didn't do anything about it for years. He lost his job, fell into coma. Now he's back to talking, but they don't know about his liver. She was making it really hard to concentrate on driving. Never mind figure out what Phil was trying to say. Most of the time, him not talking is kind of nice. Not a lot of thinking done. Other times, it's like living with a damn mime, and I just think to myself, say something already. Of course, it would have been easier if Phil was driving. I could have done the reading myself. He's got a license and all. He just doesn't like to drive. So anyway, I'm behind the wheel, driving as fast as I can. Evelyn's babbling away again, this time about a neighbor's son who got his arm caught up in a wood chipper. Phil's reading, and finally he gets to the part where everything goes down the drain. The truth of the matter was simple. Our great-grandfather sold the land. The Milfords didn't lie, they didn't cheat. We misunderstood. All those stories, knocking over the bank, it was for nothing. Everything washed away right there and then. We would have done anything to vindicate our family, but at that point, it wasn't worth getting caught. I can see some of you wanting to laugh. Please don't hold back on our account. It's hard not to laugh at some of the things that me and Phil did that day. So we turned down this little police scanner we had with us, and they're going on and on about armed and dangerous, robbery, kidnapping. They identified Phil's car, too. So we went to our backup plan. Pulled into Artie's diner so we could change vehicles. We knew Artie left the keys in the truck, or at least he did when we worked for him. But they weren't in the ignition, so we locked Evelyn in the trunk and went inside. And that's when Phil pointed out that we needed some money. We didn't take so much as a roll of nickels from the bank. And a diner like Artie's is all cash, no security. Like I said, we don't like pulling guns on neighbors, but Artie played it stubborn, which surprised us. We knew we were breaking the law, but we thought people would be on our side. They would look past what we were doing and see why we were doing it. Kind of like Robin Hood or Martin Luther King. So anyway, we came away with a couple of $100, a mess of donuts, a couple of coffees. Didn't bother getting one for Evelyn because of the gag and all. The only problem was that Artie's pickup was almost out of gas, so we had to take his delivery van. You know the one I'm talking about. Big pink frosted donut mounted on the roof. Not a fast vehicle, but we think reverse psychology, perfect cover. Lucky for us, there wasn't anybody else in the diner except for Artie. I ripped the phone cord out because we knew Artie couldn't keep his mouth shut. And just as we were about to leave, Artie Brown, of all people, pulls out a cell phone. So of course, we had to take him too. Not 5 minutes down the road, we hear Charlie Dell come on the scanner. And we hear that he's in pursuit of a donut truck northbound on 95. We figured that's us. So we get off the highway, we head for Baxter Park. We lose him down there. We know those trails really well, but the access roads aren't marked, so we got lost. Wound up down by the lake, van got stuck in the sand, and before we know it, we're out on foot. We left the back door open to let in some fresh air for Evelyn and Artie. Then Phil and I made a beeline for the woods. A couple of minutes later, we stopped, caught our breath, realized that we had left the money back in the van. So we headed back, and it turned out we weren't very good at the binding part of kidnapping either, because Evelyn and Artie, they were gone. So we had to split up so we could find them. After a couple of hours, I gave up. I thought avoiding Charlie Dell was more important than finding Evelyn or Artie. I found cover, stayed put till sundown, and planned to move at night. Figured Phil for the same. About dusk, I was at the edge of this clearing. I heard one of Phil's bird calls. Spotted him about 100 yards away. Then all of a sudden, I saw Charlie Dell standing in this clearing between us. I swear Charlie saw me, and I couldn't tell if he was looking to talk or shoot. Like I said, I don't like pulling a gun on a neighbor. But something was wrong. I knew it as soon as I squeezed the trigger. I heard a second shot, just as I saw Phil flinch and drop like a rag doll. I felt this flash of rage at Charlie for shooting my brother just before I felt this god-awful sting in my shoulder. Like a copperhead came up on me. I realized I'd been shot too. Meanwhile, Charlie Dell, nowhere to be seen. It was like he disappeared. It took a couple of minutes for me to get up, but somehow I staggered across the clearing, and I was yelling out every move I made. Because I could only raise the one arm, I didn't want Charlie Dell, or whoever else was with him, thinking that I still had a gun. I was trying to draw attention to myself, thinking maybe Phil could get away. I mean, me and Phil, we look out for each other. Lived together our whole lives, always had the same jobs, like the same shows, the same bands. And as I was walking across that field, I got this image in my head of being at the grocery store and Phil not wanting to try one of those cheese on his stick samples unless I did too. It's funny what goes through your mind at a time like that. So I made it over to Phil, and he was lying there, pointing first at his gun, and then me, and I couldn't figure out what he was trying to say. The thing about Phil is he does his best gesturing with his right hand, which he couldn't move because the gunshot went. And I was cussing at him. Damn it, Phil, you can talk. This is one of those times where you better. And all of a sudden, there's Charlie Dell again. He's telling us to keep our hands up, which we couldn't do, and he ought to have known why we couldn't, because he was the one who shot us. Or at least so I thought at the time. And he was making me really nervous. Cussing us for taking him on this wild goose chase, scaring poor Evelyn and Artie. He was just looking down the barrel of his gun as he came up on us, just moving it real slow back and forth between me and Phil. And then Charlie Dell stopped. I could see the anger on his face. And there was a long moment where I wondered what he was going to do next. I'd never met the man, but just like you, I know his reputation. I expected him to finish the job. But then, I swear, I saw him about to laugh. Phil was lying there on the ground, gesturing toward his own gun. I was standing there clutching my shoulder. Couldn't figure out what Phil was trying to say. And that smirk came back on Charlie Dell's face. And that's when it hits me. That's when the worst day of our lives got worse. Charlie Dell didn't shoot me or Phil. We shot each other. I could have sworn I was shooting at Charlie Dell. Phil was thinking the same thing, but my brother and I, we shot each other. Charlie Dell cuffed us and we waited for the ambulance. He didn't say a word the whole time. I never felt such shame and remorse. Just take a look at Phil's face, you could tell he felt even worse. But here's the thing. No one has ever said a word to us about those shootings. We took a lot of guff about robbing a bank without masks, not taking money from a bank robbery, the donut trucks, kidnapping senior citizens, and all the rest of it. But to this day, no one has said a word to us about shooting each other. I have no idea how or why Charlie Dell kept that under wraps. But he let us keep some of our dignity. Phil and I need to thank him for that. We're not drinking that much anymore, but tonight we're making an exception. Here's to you, Charlie Dell. Thank you.
Yay!